so much. So I'll heed your warning and try not to fall off the back of the stage. Oh my God, it is bright. Wow. I guess that's for C-SPAN. Okay, is C-SPAN audio okay? Can you hear me? Good. Okay, thanks for coming out. I used to live here, of course, so this is an extremely familiar bookstore to me. I used to haunt it when I was younger, that time so long ago. And I cherish this particular store, and I thank you for supporting it. We just lost the last significant bookstore in North Berkeley where I live, and to not have a bookstore really changes things. It's extraordinary. You know, I'd like to believe the net makes up for it, but it doesn't. It's just not the same. So these are really precious places. So this book. Pardon me. The other thing about Palo Alto I remember is that I'm allergic to it this time of year. These extraordinary wafts of pollen that come over from the ocean borne by our fog. Okay. 30 years ago, or so, 30 and some odd years ago, I was part of a circle of young techies, and I bet there are other people from that circle who are here, who were just on fire with this idea about how we were going to improve the world. We were going to get digital networking to happen. We were going to get amazing user interface experiences to happen. We were going to make computing easy and accessible to everybody, and it was going to create this huge wave of well-being. I remember anticipating this so tangibly that I could feel it. I could just feel, wow, we're going to do a wonderful, wonderful thing for the world. And I still believe that we will, and we have a little bit. But in my view, in my experience, something started to go wrong and has gone really pretty bad. So I want to explain what that is so you can understand my motivation and how I came to the position I have now. When huge new waves of technological efficiency have appeared in the past, they've often been imperfect. They've often created little power centers or disruptions or all sorts of things. But generally, the appearance of the interstate highways, of plumbing, of electricity in the wall, of nitrogen-fixing fertilizers, vaccines, clean water available with the turn of a knob in your home. When all these things appear, what is undeniable and really apparent immediately thereafter is a wave of improvement and well-being for people. Vast portions of the population start doing better. All kinds of things are opened up. I was certain that was going to happen with digital networking, but it's not exactly the way things went. Starting around the turn of the century, I started to notice a pattern that was really bothering me, which is that my friends who worked in the industries that were most affected by digital networking first, and I'm thinking of musicians and journalists and photographers, were not finding the world of new opportunity that I had for so long anticipated would appear. Instead, I ended up almost every week having to be part of a fundraiser to help somebody get a crucial operation they needed when they didn't have insurance, or something like that. And I'm talking about people who are well known, and not the unknown, not the unfamous, but these are well-known musicians who were ashamed to admit that they needed help. And that had not been true before. That was new. But then what really hit me was the financial crises. The whole developed world, and I'm focusing here on the developed world exclusively for the moment. I'll get to the developing world later. But the whole developed world, at approximately the same time, got itself tangled up in financial absurdity. You had the most powerful countries losing their credit ratings. You had loss of social mobility, jobless recoveries, hollowed out job markets, insanely tight credit, massive waves of financial fraud or pseudo-fraud. And most of all, there was a phenomenon of intense concentration of wealth and influence and a loss of the broader middle of wealth and influence, a decline of what we could call the middle class. And this happened in societies all over the world, not just here, all the developed ones. And this just blew my mind. Now, when I looked at this, I noticed something that sent chills down my spine, which is that all of the newly powerful elite, all of the people who are really at the center of the game, and I have to mention, I've done pretty well in this game myself, so I'm not talking about some remote other, I'm talking about me and my friends, and I know many of the individuals who've done really well in the last 15 years, let's say. These are my buddies, they're not some weird aliens. But every single one of us who's done well is somehow close to one of the biggest computers on the net. And what I started to realize is that in the new system we've created, power and influence were accumulating around the biggest computers on the network. This happened in finance, it happened in insurance, it happened in electoral politics, it happened in media, it happened with nation states. It was happening all over. So I thought back on my idealism from when I'd been younger. I'd been kind of a fire-breathing, open culture person for years. I helped make up a lot of the rhetoric. And what we had always believed is that if you made information available as an ambient resource, it would create so many opportunities and so much efficiency and so much creativity that we weren't sure what would happen, but surely the incredible sprouting of benefits from that would overwhelm any problems that would otherwise be temporary. But we failed to consider something, which is if you want to create this utopia where you have all these people sharing their information and everything's available, people might be created equal, but computers are not created equal. Computers are vastly different from one another. Some computers are giant server farms in Utah collecting information for American intelligence organizations. Some computers are giant server farms powered by their own power plants and cooled by rivers or even glaciers. You know, there are all these exotic ways to try to deal with these giant things we have to build. Some of them belong to financial schemes. Some of them belong to social media or search companies. Some of them belong to financiers. There are all kinds of different ones. Some of the weird distributed ones that take over our computers are run by criminal organizations, but they're all basically doing the same thing. So what happens is if everybody shares equally, whoever has the best computer gets unnatural advantages, gets advantages that are so profound that they seduce the owners of the largest computers into, well, let's say when you're gifted, when you're privileged, you often don't notice it. It's a thing that's invisible. It's a form of failure that sneaks into people, and you end up essentially taking advantage of your position without ever intending to, without ever knowing, because it's the most natural thing in the world. One way to explain what it's like to have the biggest computer on a network is to go back to a thought experiment creature from the 19th century. You're going to notice that I'm going to go to the 19th century a lot in this talk because I feel the 21st century is in a way an echo of the 19th century in a multitude of ways. So there's a creature I'd like to introduce you to. Actually, in a town like this that's so educated, most of you will probably know about this, but I'm going to talk about Maxwell's demon. How many of you have encountered this demon? Ah, okay. Well, you never know. So Maxwell's demon is somebody who you will meet if you take a class in introductory thermodynamics. Oh no, he's going to talk about physics. Run! Run! No, it's really simple. James Clerk Maxwell had this demon named after him. Imagine a little demon who's opening and closing a little tiny door. It's just an itty-bitty door. It's just big enough for a molecule to slip through. The demon is watching molecules in two chambers that are right next to each other, and this little door connects the chambers. Each chamber is filled with a fluid, water or air, something like that. And the demon is watching the molecules approach the door, and if there's a really hot one on the left side, the demon will let it through to the right side, and if there's a really cold one moving around nice and slow and smooth, the demon will let it go to the left side. And just by observing these molecules and opening this door very carefully, the demon separates the hot from the cold. Once you've done that, you can do something rather nice, which is you can open up a bigger door and let the cold and the hot mix again, running a turbine on the way, and then you can repeat the process and you have perpetual motion, right? Global warming solved.